All right, one of my favorite stories to tell is a time where I was moving out from Bible college, and I was in my truck, and we are driving along, and just for a disclaimer, I hate Ohio now because of this. It was bad enough with the barrels and just construction everywhere. We're making okay time for Ohio anyway, and we were going to go out to a camp out there, kind of on my way from Iowa back to New York, where I was moving, and we hit a dead stop traffic, and apparently we found out later that a tanker had overturned on the highway on our side of the highway, and there was zero movement whatsoever until they cleaned it up, and then it was backed up for miles and miles. Anyway, during this period of time, while I'm sitting there and trying to not overheat my car, and so we're just sitting there watching. People are doing illegal things like going across the median, and the problem being that, I mean, for smaller cars maybe it was okay, but the median was one of those where it's a deep dip down, kind of sharp drop a little bit, and then goes across kind of flat and then up onto the other side of the highway. So most cars were able to make it, but what was funny was then I saw a Atlas van try to do this, like one of the 26-foot, moving van, and I said, well, at least here's some entertainment for a little while. Well, he got pinned up on the back bumper, and so, but he was just so close. So the guys get out of the truck, and they go to the back, and they pulling cardboard out, trying to prop it up with cardboard and give it traction or whatever, and they're just shooting the cardboard up onto the highway. It's just the shoulder, and then I don't know what they were doing because I was a little bit of ways away from it, but I know I saw them getting out furniture. I don't know if they were trying to prop it up with like leaves from a table or what, but I know it was furniture. And I remember that you should have just closed at whatever point they decided to do this at the beginning of it. And they got hung up. They should have just closed it up, locked it up, walked away, and called in and said, we're fired. We know it. Here's your van. You can get it on the highway. They just went from bad to worse. We sometimes do that. We react to things. I can think of probably millions of things I've done where I'm, starting a construction project on my house or doing one thing, and you want to do something, and you make a situation worse than it needs to be, and you don't think ahead of what you're doing. You need to solve this immediate problem right now. This problem is what's on my mind, and we end up just making problems for ourselves down the road, and because we really have a short vision. I mean, maybe if we thought it out, we could think a little bit ahead, but a lot of times we just have no idea where the problem can take us to, and what things are going to compound. Maybe if we did a little thought that we could mitigate some of those problems. As data, slightly on a more serious note, as data now is rolling in from Europe, they're a little bit ahead of things, and some of the antibody testing for the virus that we're dealing with in Germany is interesting. They're finding out that as they find out that a lot more people have had this than we thought, that the mortality rate for this is coming and dropping dramatically. So that when you think of what we've done to mitigate the problems that we're seeing, we've overreacted a little bit. Just a little bit, we've overreacted. Right now in Germany, they're estimating that there's actually a mortality rate of about 0.2%, and maybe lower, which is a little bit worse than the flu that we deal with every year, which has about 0.1%. So we've put, now I think the count is over 17 or 18 million people out of work in a little over a month for this overreaction. And so now the world is now thinking of going back to work. What are we going to do now? We dealt with the immediate problem, or we're still in the process in some areas of dealing with the problem, uh, still in homes, but the world is now thinking about we need to get back and working, and people need to eat. We can't continue to print money for forever. This is not a sustainable model. There are people that probably would love this to be a sustainable model, but that's a different topic for a different day. Actually, no, it's not a different topic for a different day. It's a different topic for a different forum. But we've made a problem because of fear. There are going to be things that we would like to come back, but that simply aren't going to come back soon. Airlines. People are going to be afraid to fly on airplanes because we think this is the bubonic plague now, and it's not really. So that's one of the things that's happening, and it's not to say that this isn't dangerous at all, but because of an overreaction, we've created some problems for ourselves, and so we talk about coming back and reopening the country as other nations are trying to do. Then we have a problem that it's going to be slightly hard to do. We've made some down the road problems for ourselves. Well, in trying to do this, a lot of people are saying, well, we're not going to be able to just open the doors and let everything go back the way it was. There's going to be kind of a rollout of the steps that we do. And so different countries are thinking about how to do this. Now bear with me. Because of the short-term reaction that a lot of nations have had to this, think about this, and specifically Europe. A couple of countries are proposing or are doing to some degree, Italy and Germany among them. I think England is doing some things where they have, if you've already had it and you have the antibodies, you're free to work because you're. Now that sounds good on the face of it, but how do we know who has had the virus? Well, we have to test, and well, how are we going to know that you got tested? We're going to have you carry around maybe put something on an identification card, and think about. So we're not really thinking that far down the road, but this is already being done. Or another thing we need to do is we need to track people to know who they're interacting with. Are you interacting with people who haven't had it? So we need a database to know who has it and who doesn't, and are you interacting, and how are we going to know? Well, we know where your cell phone is, and we know where your cell phone is. Because, Europe has never had a problem with databases for groups of people ever in their history. Europe has never had a problem with you need to show me your papers at any given moment to know if you're okay in public. Europe has never had that problem before. We're so short-sighted in our cures for problems that we make that we sometimes make the situation worse, and there's an incredible danger in what is happening that we don't think about because we're trying to solve problems and we don't really look at it. There's a statement that Jesus makes in Luke chapter 14, and he says, listen, you need to count the cost. If you're building something and you don't count the cost, it's just, you're not going to have money to complete it, and it's just going to sit there, and people are going to walk by and say, wow, what an idiot. This is the Andrew Green version of that statement, but that's in essence what people do. You're going to look like a person that didn't really have it together when you were in the planning stages of things. So the application that I want to drive then is whether it be in our churches or our personal lives, maybe in your families, we make stands for things, and we get up in arms about things, or whatever the situation. We come up with solutions for things, and problems arise, and we come up with, this is important I need to deal with it, and we need to deal with it now. And we get in that mode, and we sometimes create a situation down the road that we didn't really expect we were going to have to deal with. Now I've got to deal with the after effects of my wonderful solution. Um, so this is an admonition for all of us to try to consider ahead of time the ramifications of the solutions I create, whether it be in solving interpersonal problems with people, and this is what you need to do, and this is how we're going to deal with it, or preventing things, we want to prevent bad things from happening, whatever the case may be. Try to consider ahead of time. Just stop and say, is this problem really worth dealing with? Not every battle is one to be fought. Sometimes we just need to let this battle go and win the war. But when we do determine that a battle needs to be fought, we need to look and see if the methods that I'm using to address that are going to create a worse problem down the road. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.